Hello, so today I'm going to introduce a book called How to Tell a Story by the director of The Moth. The Moth is a podcast that people come out in their late night shows and talk about their story for 5 minutes given the theme. And the listeners, as audiences, would sit there and listen to the story without talking, without questioning, and just listening and sympathizing to the speaker. So the reason that the directors made this book was because they wanted people to craft their own stories, not only for people who are talking at a storytelling podcast, but to normal people, and because they wanted to show the beauty of storytelling. So today I'm going to talk about what they said in a summarized version, also including some of my tips in there, and also try to deliver the beauty of storytelling that I felt through this book to you. It's quite thick, but it has a lot of examples in there, and it's a very interesting book, so it's highly recommended. So to start off, every person has a story. No matter how young or old, they have one. And there's beauty to it because it changes people. Sharing people your story is sharing your beauty, and it's a generous act. Thanks to the capacity of our imagination, stories bring others' experiences to life. So we can see and feel events that didn't really happen to us. And when you choose to share a story, you're sharing a piece of yourself. So stories explain your heart, they kind of decode your history, and they also decipher who you are. So even when what you're sharing is not like a common story, like almost being killed by being kidnapped or being embarrassed in front of the United States president, what each people feel or get out of that story is totally different. Like the pain, the rejoice, and thrill is a very universal feeling, so there might be empathy happening. And we all have experienced the layout of acting out as a character, making a wrong decision, going through a happy moment. Only the details are what's kind of different, which is why we find ourselves in a story that someone else tells. So we're restored to compassion, possibility to our messy and convoluted human community. So how do we exactly build our story? Good news. We already have everything inside our head. We just have to find the right pieces that go together and match together in the beautiful courtyard, in the beautiful junkyard that you have inside your mind. So, first of all, what you need to do is think about a topic, an experience that you want to share. So what are your greatest hits? What are the moments that stick with you? Is there a moment you surprise yourself, something that you'll never forget, a decision that you changed your whole life? And they can be really simple. Going out to a singing contest, messing it up, an object that reminds you of your mom, the joke that you got from that, and how you kind of healed some relationship through that joke. And look through all of the memories that you remember. There's going to be a reason why you remember something for so long. And try to remember why you actually care about that memory or story inside you. This is my tip. And what are the moments that you felt like most like yourself? And try looking for that place, object, or a person that means a lot to you. Think about the emotion, the changes, the discoveries found during that journey. So the Moth directors also tell that it must be true, that it must be your own story, and that it must have stakes. So the first two are quite obvious, that it must be true and that it must be your own story. But what does it have to do with stakes? So think of tension as stake, a problem that isn't solved yet, a struggle over a tough or conflicting choice, a question that needs to be answered, a mystery you're trying to get the bottom of, or an expected event. So whether they are internal or external stakes, build the tension of your story, and building tension is important. But don't go too into it, or else people will start losing you in your story. When reading, you can revisit a sentence if it didn't make sense for the first time. You can linger on it to make sure you understand the meaning, but remember that with live storytelling, your listener cannot. So be clear with the scenes you paint. And now that we talked about such elements, I'm going to talk about the big three main elements that are quite essential to storytelling. They are scenes, summaries, and reflection. So scenes, they illustrate parts of the story that are critical to the arc. Summaries move us through the timeline, 3 weeks later, after this, after that, 2 kids and a mortgage later. And reflections, they share your feelings of what you learned, concluded, deduced, or decided to change. Showing how the event impacted you or changed you, from my opinion, is very pivotal. It's different from giving a moral. We'll talk about this later as I show you how to write a good starting and a good ending. So there are a few structures that you could use while doing a storytelling. They are chronological, true chronologies in tandem, and flashbacks. So what a lot of people go for is chronological because it tends to bring the readers directly through the experience and let them understand it better. They'll go along with you as you talk about the story. And sometimes cutting back and forth between 2 stories that unfold simultaneously, it might be more effective to get across what you want to say. It illustrates the complexity in a much, much deeper way if 2 contradictory things happen at the same time. And lastly, there's flashbacks, and there's 3 types of flashbacks. They are classic flashback, which may happen anytime in the story, cliffhanger, which is typically used in the beginning, and multiple flashback. And this might be a bit confusing to your readers, but do tell when it kind of helps the story. It's brief, it's essential. And no matter what structure you use though, choosing a shape unique to your story is really important because it's a thoughtful structure that gives you a roadmap of how to start and finish your story. And starting and ending a story has the potential of setting the tone and ending it with leaving the audience understanding everything, or making the whole story sour and bland and tasteless. So a favorable way for you to end your story is giving a reflection, stating the change or how it affected you and your feelings. You're not required to tell a moral. It's telling the listener what they need to think. And some unsatisfying endings along with the moral is that they feel too perfect or they feel too matchy, that they are uncertain, unresolved, and they kept meandering. And in contrast, good endings, they come to a definite stop without meandering. They are rooted from the change you experienced and they answer the central question. So the endings that include "but then I realized" and "at the moment," they aren't really recommended. So this is the last thing that I'm going to talk about. Before the ending, there should be a moment where you dress your story appropriately and fancy. Let it wear its mascara and its bow tie. What I mean by this is put in details. Try to paint the scene as vividly as you can. So what are you saying? What are you feeling? What does the smoked marshmallow smell like? Or what does the old radio sing? Details turn your black and white story into Technicolor. It plays a part by giving a chance to the listeners to eloquently design the scene together. So this is the guideline to crafting and telling your own story, telling moments of your life and getting others to feel the experience that only you felt might be very challenging. And it's definitely a thought-provoking process. But as we tell stories, we get to chance to go back and reflect at our life events, think deeply how it affected us, and heal from it as we craft our story. And I promise it's going to be great. So, thank you so much for watching the video and like it. Thank you. Bye.